Lumber prices are through the roof. And we're not only going to explain to you why that's taking place, we're actually going to give you some helpful tips on how to reduce the cost of lumber for your own building project. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is find a building site with the sort of lumber that you like. Next thing that you're going to want to do is mask up. Now, I know what you're thinking, the mask mandates are over, but believe me, for this, you're going to want a mask. So go ahead and get your mask, grab your lumber, and let's get to the car. Okay, first things first, we did not actually steal any lumber in the making of this Y Minutes, but I understand it might be tempting given the prices. But before you and your friends go pull an Ocean 11s on the next Home Depot,
we're gonna rob it. Smash and grab job, huh?
We first need to ask ourselves, why is the price so incredibly high? Now, you've probably seen a lot of memes on the internet and TikTok videos talking about the seemingly ridiculous price of lumber.
That'll be $95.
And while these videos are interesting and oftentimes humorous, many of the reasons they offer don't actually consider the complexity of the issue. I mean, after all, they ask, how is it there can be so much lumber at Lowe's and Home Depot, and at the same time, we're told that there's higher prices because of a shortage? Well, to answer that one, it's important to understand that when a retailer sells you lumber, they aren't selling it to you purely based on the price they paid for it, but on the price they will have to pay to restock it in the future. And prices are going up not only because of an increase in demand, but because of a shortage of supply. And there are a lot of things affecting supply right now. This includes everything from forest fires to a tiny pine beetle in Canada wiping out 730 million cubic feet of pine over the last decade. But did you know that on top of all that, there is a series of government policies going back decades that have a lot to do with why lumber is so expensive today? Government regulations and taxes make it difficult to set up a sawmill in the first place. The government-infused housing bubble of the early 2000s also created a whole host of problems. Then there's US government tariffs on China and Canada, combined with the retaliatory tariffs that they leveled against the United States. All have drastically increased the cost of producing and exporting lumber. COVID lockdown policies contributed to supply issues, causing existing sawmills to go out of business or to drastically reduce production. And now that we find ourselves with increased demand, we don't have somebody to get what we need. Throw in government-imposed inflation, and you have a recipe for higher prices. So how are we going to fix this problem? Because there will be no shortage of politicians with so-called solutions. Well, there's really only two ways to get there. When demand for something is high, we can either increase the supply, or we can find cheaper alternatives. But the last thing we need is more political meddling in the economy. Anticipating consumer demand is difficult enough without having to factor in poorly considered government policy. And while there will always be factors from forest fires to pine beetles to contend with, those rarely cause as much damage as well-intentioned politicians interfering in things that they don't really understand. So ultimately, the way we're going to get through this is through more free market competition. In fact, if you want to learn more about why saying screw you and having options in the economy is very important, go ahead and check out our video on why screw you is important to capitalism. Because ultimately, more choice in the economy is how we bring down prices and get better quality, not more political interference.